Hey guys, so it's Iron Fist here, back with another video, and yes, I know, yet again, it's been long. It's been a long time since I again uploaded. But it's because of the exams and stuff that, yeah, well, I gotta give. Boring, right? Anyway, from the guys who know that I have a blog, and for those who don't, yeah, I have a blog, and I recently posted that I would be working on a new series titled Reverse Engineering and Exploit Development. Together, you, my viewers, and me will embark on an adventure to learn this skill, which is amazing, to be honest. Anyway, I've created a little presentation for you guys to give you a little overview on what's what. Anyway, let's get started. So chapter 1, the basics. So the certain things that we'll cover will be basic terminology, tools required for debugging and stuff, stack and the heap in memory. There are two very important places to get started, and the different types of vulnerabilities and exploits. So let me just explain what exactly reverse engineering is. So some people call it reversing. This is basically how we find and understand the internal workings of an application, basically all in assembly lines. So if you open an application or an executable in a debugger, it will convert it all to assembly line, and you'll see instructions like JMP and pop and stuff like that, all the assembly line stuff. Now this will also help us find a range of vulnerabilities in the application and executable. That means that certain thumb rules to remember would be, for example, you got to look for jump ESP or something like that. I'll get more into that a little later. Anyway, now the tools of the trade for debugging. For Windows, there's like a wide range, but the ones that I like are Immunity Debugger, OllyDBG, and WinDBG. Now, one thing to note is that WinDBG comes with Windows. It's Windows's inbuilt debugger, you could say that. Now, for Linux, they didn't leave out. I mean, there is EDB, and you can use all the Windows debuggers as well through Wine, basically the emulator, which lets you run Windows applications on Linux. Now, for developing exploits and the payloads, we'll be using Metasploit, obviously. Now, there are two things mainly that we'll be focusing on with Metasploit. One is finding the pattern offsets and creating patterns and stuff like that through their Ruby files. And second would be obviously creating the payload, basically stuff in hex. Yeah, you'll see what I mean later. I mean, it's just, and you should also have prior knowledge of programming. I mean, any versatile language would do, something like Python or Perl, anything. Like for example, on Codeland.be, the website, which makes multiple tutorials of exploit dev, they use Perl mostly, but I'll be using Python. Anyway, now let's get into the stack. Now this is the most basic of exploits, because you wouldn't really find an exploit in a stack in a real world scenario. The chances are extremely less because developers will work really hard to safeguard this first. Now, it's a special region of your computer's memory that stores temporary variables created by each function, including the main, obviously. Now, one interesting thing about the stack is that it works on a last in and a first out system. Now, you can read more on this, but what I mean is that the first variable will go to the bottom of the stack, and what will come out is the last variable that was put in. Now, two things to remember is push and pop. So every time a function declares a new variable, it is pushed onto the stack, and whenever a variable is to be removed, it is popped. And another rule to remember is that the stack automatically manages memory for you. Anyway, now let's move on to the heap. Obviously, the heap is quite similar to the stack in many ways, but again, it is a region of a computer's memory, but it is not managed automatically. So in languages like C, you would have to use malloc or calloc to allocate memory, and you will have to also manually free them using a free function, or else there would be a memory leak. Unlike the stack, the heap does not have size restrictions on variable size, and also heap memory is slightly slower to read from because pointers are used to access memory on the heap. Now, pointers are basically, as the name suggests, pointers. It points to a variable in memory. Now, for example, an integer variable will hold an integer value. However, an integer pointer holds the address of an integer variable. That's just a few main things to remember. Now, world of exploits and vulnerabilities, what we've been waiting for. So, according to me, the way I like to generalize it, there are basically four types of these. I mean, I know I'm basically combining exploits and vulns together, which is weird, but hear me out. So, four types: stack buffer overflows, heap buffer overflows, and there's also format string vulnerabilities. Now, just to give you a short overview, it's basically in languages like Python. If you guys are Pythoners, you'd know that to that in your code to distinguish a variable of its type, you'd use something like percentage s for string or percentage I and so on. So this leads to a very big risk, and we'll find this, and we'll practice this later on as well, but you'll get the idea. Basically, it works on the format strings. And lastly, kernel exploits, which take place right at the heart of the operating system. Now, I guess this is the most important part of this series. Why exactly are we learning this? So, we hear it almost every day that these skills can create a lot of damage, like a great deal of damage. I'm obviously talking about custom made exploits. But let's not forget that one important thing, that to catch a thief, you must think like a thief. Now, as we learn how exploits work and how they are created, we can also learn, and we can learn the flaws of executing certain exploits in certain areas and how to defend against them. We can find the vulnerabilities in the exploits in a certain sense, if you get what I mean, and that's what will make us responsible information security practitioners. Also, as we reverse engineer vulnerable applications, we can also learn from the mistakes that were created back in the day and potentially not make them again, which gives us a huge edge on the whole infosec place. Needless to say that with great power comes great responsibility. That's what Uncle Ben told to Peter Parker in the car in Spider-Man, the old film. But here we are: with great power comes a great electricity bill, which is also true, mind you. Anyway, so with this, I conclude my overview on reverse engineering and exploit development. Obviously, this is barely even scratching the surface, but at least you guys get a good idea of what's coming your way, and I hope you guys find it exciting. If there's any tips you would like to leave, please leave them down in the comments below. And I hope you guys had a good Christmas, and see you guys in the next video. In the next video, we will be covering stack buffer overflows, a whole practical guide. So see you guys. Bye bye.